Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Pål and Ville Sontu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast you all love to follow and listen to. Again, as we sometimes do, Ville and I have gate crashed another event here in the Nordics. We can't really say gate crashed though, because we are the official podcast partner to Helsinki Fintech Farm, but it is the Nordic Fintech Summit here in beautiful Helsinki. For today, it's an event filled up with fantastic fintech companies, thought leaders, banks, all the people we enjoy talking to. Some of them have expressed that they'd love to come back and talk to us today. They were actually with us when we were in Stockholm. So there'll be some repeats, but we're hoping with new messages, new ideas, new thoughts, and everything else. As always, I am Pål. I am going to be your host for this episode, but I never do this alone. I don't believe that we could ever do this alone. This is a partnership. This is a partnership made in fintech heaven. So I'm here with Ville, as always. Ville, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic. It's the one of my favorite fintech event in Helsinki, at least globally.
In Helsinki, globally?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Globally, my favorite Helsinki fintech event. Okay, I think that's what we're going with. So again, it's the time of the year when all the people in the Finnish fintech scene get together, and then of course we have people from outside coming here as well. But it just feels like a nice place to meet a lot of people from our existing networks, our former guests, our listeners and fans of the podcast. So it's going to be a fun day.
And traditionally there is the karaoke this evening. Are you going to be partaking and singing some songs?
Yeah, I'm not gonna sing unless they force me like last year, but who knows? We'll see.
Okay, I unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'm gonna miss it this year because, as you know, we are running in the Helsinki Marathon in 2 days' time now.
Smart choice.
And I think the late nights, alcohol, and everything else is a bad idea just before running a long distance. So I will sneak away when this event finishes, and you will have to do the singing and drinking for the both of us and really keep up that fintech daydreaming feel for the whole evening. Can you do that?
I can do my best.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so the plan for today, just like we always do when we have these live recordings, we will be walking around, finding people that are interesting, got a story to share, and we'll interview them here on this couch at the Nordic Fintech Summit. So join with us. I hope you enjoyed the discussions, and with that, let's move on and find our first guest.
Let's do that.
So as always, we have to start any of these events where we're doing the interviews with the person responsible behind it, the person who has sweated, cried, laughed, and had sleepless nights about organizing something as fantastic as this. But you're not new to this, are you, Janne?
No. So yeah, we're actually celebrating 10 years of Nordic Fintech collaboration today. So it was 10 years ago when we started to look into fintech industry. There were all kind of nice buzzwords, PSD2 and blockchain, that got us involved, and we organized our first event early 2016. And then we have been making these events around twice a year since then. Of course, there was a slight COVID break, but
do you see like a big difference between the early events and the events now? If you were to say 3 things which are the biggest differences, except for, the people, what would you say is the biggest differences for you?
Actually, the funny thing is that the topics are very much the same. So 10 years ago, there were a lot of visions and hype how open banking could look like, and now we start to actually see some use cases. But it's been a long run. Yep. The same thing is with blockchain, is that we're still waiting it to happen.
Time out. Blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, buy now, pay later. You really know the buttons to press, don't you? Come on.
Yeah.
What did you say, Ville?
No. Say account to account payments one more time.
We have Ville behind the camera here, making sure everything's going okay, and he's saying, "Say account to account payments one more time." Janne, you are dragging us down.
But seriously, like if we look at the format and the attendees, I think 10 years ago banks were a bit more keen on meeting startups. Like, hey, what are the new innovations and what they are doing? I think now they are too fed up with that, and no, seriously, they are looking for serious, plausible solutions. Maybe a bit more mature companies that they could actually work with, rather than trying to find just dozens of new innovations. It's a bit more maybe quality over quantity.
I think one of the things that I notice, we've had the pleasure of being here with you for a number of years now, as your official podcast partner.
Yeah.
But if I go back a couple of years, it was very much fintech vendors here, very few banks.
Yeah.
It seems to me, if I look at the participants this year, you're getting more banks attending. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's of course the goal, to get more and more banks involved. But for some reason, fintech salespeople are always the most eager to join these events.
Which creates a problem, right? Because you end up with vendors, and they're all just trying to sell to each other, which never really works. I mean, you need some banks in the middle there as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So what has been to you the highlight so far? I mean, during setting all of this up, what has been the best thing for you?
Well, I think it's always good, nice to have like a good lineup and interesting people coming over. So that's kind of maybe the most rewarding thing, and then interesting to then catch up with some people who actually come maybe from a bit further and share some new maybe different perspectives.
Okay, we all seem to enjoy other people's panic. So what has been your biggest oh shit moment leading up to this?
I think it's been quite consistent oh shit for the last couple of weeks at least.
Yeah.
But I mean, after all, I think we're pretty happy with the turnout rate and so on. So I think that's the most important things, to get the right people there, and then of course to have the costs covered. Of course, that's
Of course, we all have to feed our children,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So last question, I think, from me. Have you learned anything new this time, setting all of this up and getting it ready?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you can always learn something new, but yeah. I mean, planning-wise, it's always like you should never estimate, like, or you should always try to prepare things you can do in advance. You should do in advance. But maybe fintech-wise, I think hasn't been like that dramatic changes. I think we talked a couple of years ago that there's less core banking vendors and more payment companies. That's maybe partially true. I think the trend in tech, that big tech providers who are trying to sell massive solutions, so maybe that's the share of them has been perhaps decreasing a little bit, but then there's a lot of course scale up fintechs and a lot of solutions in embedded finance and payments and so on.
Is it the year of payments, do you think? Do you think 2025 is the year of payments?
Every year is the year of payments.
Every year is the year of payments, the year of money. Okay, fantastic, Janne.
Yeah.
We will try and get you back here at the end and see if you're, turned grey or not, and whether you've enjoyed the day. But so far, fantastic. I think, as always, like Ville said when we did the little intro here, this is our favorite global fintech event in Finland.
Thank you for the honor.
Yes. Okay, guys, we'll be back in a minute with another guest.
Well, look who we found wandering around here in the corridors. So a returning guest, and which we always prefer. So Christie from Danske Bank, we met last time in Stockholm.
We did indeed.
Yes. So how did you end up here in Helsinki?
I went on a plane. No.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, going on a plane, traveling. Yeah. No, the ecosystem of fintech and what's happening in that ecosystem, and with embedded finance being on the front and center, I have to be here, and I think it's so inspiring to hear what everyone is talking about, what's on people's minds. So I'm here to soak in everything.
And you're going to be on stage as well, so you have a keynote and you're hosting a panel, which I'm also participating in.
Yes, so we'll see each other later as well.
So what are you going to be talking about?
Embedded finance,
of
but
course.
there's kind of 3 sessions I'm participating in. The first is going to be banking as a service. What does that mean for banks? What does it mean for players in the ecosystem? And then we're moving on to my keynote. There I'm going to talk about embedded finance from what we do within Danske Bank.
Great.
With our premium API. So we go beyond open banking and we look at additional data sets to expose, right? And what we do there for our customers and collaboration and co-building with them. And then we move into the panel debate where we're going to talk about, narrowing down to a specific segment on SMEs. And we're talking about embedded finance for them is around accounting. What does that mean? What does the future look like?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a nice red thread throughout the day, all tied around embedded finance.
Perfect, and I'm looking forward to our conversation on stage as well. So, and we're going to have another former guest of the podcast, Sam Salminen, there as well, the CEO of Alisa Bank. So,
old Danske Bank guy.
Yeah, exactly. And also Nordea as well.
Oh,
so,
there you go.
So, small world. Okay, but so beyond what you just mentioned in terms of being on stage, what are you most expecting out of today here in this event?
I'm looking forward to hearing what people are worried about and what's on their minds and what are they planning to do within the next 12 months. Because I also think when we're talking about what the future looks like, I think our future is getting closer and closer to where we are today because things are moving at rapid speed. So I think even 12 months might be a stretch, right? Because things can change basically 4 times. So let's see. But that's kind of get that sense of the what are people as people, individuals, what are they worried about, what's happening, what's in their minds, and what are they working on?
Perfect. So thank you for stopping by and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, really.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So one of the highlights for me about walking around here at the Nordic Fintech Summit is bumping into good friends, old friends, and people that I have a connection with. And I bumped into Taru, and Taru I know quite well. It's fantastic to see you here. But for the listeners out there, maybe very quickly introduce yourself so they get to know who you are as well.
Super nice. Thank you for inviting me to this. Taru Möller, heading strategy office in transaction banking, Nordea. I've been working in Nordea 7 years, coming latest from Telia. It's quite interesting to see, taking that world into this world, what amazing things you can do.
That's actually quite interesting. I mean, the transition from telco into banking, they're both quite heavy transactional businesses, and regulated, but they're still very different. I mean, what did you find as being the biggest change for you going from telco to banking?
Yeah, both are very regulated, maybe even so in the financing area. What I actually was surprised by was that actually looking at the telco where I was working in the Nordic space was having very much the same challenges actually that we are having in the banking segment. It's a huge transformation journey that telecom was doing some years ago already, and we are now middle of that. It's all about how do we adapt to the regulation, how do we build capabilities by transforming our capabilities, the tech stack, and then, okay, how do we protect our strongholds? The difference there is that maybe telco is being more curious to find new business opportunities outside of their core business, when still in the financial industry and being in the incumbent banks, we are still very much within our own strongholds.
In your comfort zone.
Yes.
Not wanting the world to change and just keep it steady.
Yeah, it has
sweet.
been surprisingly challenging to kind of get us to open to opportunities that might lie outside of our core business.
Do you think that we're sort of, a lot of people are signaling that although we've seen disruption happening over a longer period of time in the banking industry, we're now at a cusp where things are really going to change, and they're going to change fast. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah?
Fully. That's why I'm super happy that we have been starting this transformation journey already some years ago. So we are getting prepared. We are not fully there yet, but we are getting to the better position that is definitely needed in order to be capable to capture the promise of the data and be implementing these new technologies like AI as a part of our servicing models.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're here at the Nordic Fintech Summit. Ville and I have said it's our favorite global event in Finland. It's a good sort of double-edged there, right? It's global in Finland. You're here as well. What are you hoping to get out of the day?
Yeah, there's a lot of good, interesting presentations happening on the stage, and obviously, even though a lot might be something that you already know and are aware of working within, there is always something new that you can kind of get delighted about, get aware of, something that you haven't considered, because it is so easy to kind of get inside your own head and own truths. That is the one thing. And the second thing, absolutely most fantastic here, is the fact of meeting other people, industry players from different areas, and sharing knowledge with each other, this networking, that is super valuable.
And you're presenting here today as well,
yes,
right? So what are you presenting on?
Yeah, we are talking about the risk and opportunities within embedded finance, and you obviously are going to hear this classical positioning. Incumbent banks and the cool fintech companies and the non-financial players, are we capable to survive?
So actually, then that's interesting. Let me point a question at you. We have an awful lot of incumbent banks that listen to us. Lots of fintechs as well, but lots of incumbent banks globally. What would be your one main recommendation to the incumbent banks when it comes to embedded finance?
Yeah, it is a phenomenon that is not going to go away.
No.
So we need to make a decision what role we want to play there. And that is the kind of maybe the most important. You can be even considering not do anything, but it needs to be aware and an informed decision to do. So really consider, like, can you find some strengths or possibilities within embedded finance, and what part of the value chain you can find it? Or do you dare to step out, and what then could be coming as a consequences?
Yeah, as I always say, and Ville cringes every time I say this, but the future of banking will be dominated by platforms. And I strongly believe that. So yes, absolutely. Fantastic to talk to you.
Thank you, the same.
Yeah.
And we have another guest with us today, and we run into you, Dave. So why don't you tell us a little bit, who are you and why are you here at the Fintech Summit?
Why am I back is the question. This is the thing. We were here last year at the Fintech Festival here in Helsinki, and it was just a tremendous event. I was just blown away by the talent of people building here. Obviously, Citi's got, this is a really important market for us. As are all of the Nordics, but had a lot of fun here last year. Met some great people like yourself. Sang some karaoke, which was also very good. Not part of my day job, but it was still good all the same.
Yeah, I will still always deny any evidence that you might see about our karaoke performance.
Yes, we sang together. Yeah, but it was good. But in reality, by day I lead strategy and partnerships for digital assets at Citi in our Treasury and Trade Solutions business, which is the business that moves $5 trillion a day for large organizations, 2,000 banks, governments, quite a meaty global business. And what I do is build solutions like Citi Token Services, which is our blockchain platform that allows us to essentially tokenize the dollar and move money 24/7 remove cut-off hours for our clients and just bring to life the promise of blockchain, because we've been talking about it for long enough, right? But this is actually clients using it on a daily basis, moving significant values instantly. So it's real.
Yeah, some would say finally. Anyway,
exactly.
Leave it with a question mark in the end.
Yeah.
But again, you're just fresh off stage, so you gave a keynote here. So what was the keynote about?
The keynote was about the changing regulatory environment globally, which is kind of unleashing further innovations and further developments in blockchain. And I think, we've been talking about blockchain for some time, and we've been really waiting for it to get mainstream usage. We obviously built our own internal solution which tokenizes deposits, or tokenizes the liquidity that we hold at branches and allows us to move money 24/7. But there's been some interesting developments in the stablecoin space as well, right? We launched a report which conveniently is here on my lap, digital dollars, how banks and public sectors are driving blockchain adoption. We predict in this report that stablecoins are going to rise from 230 billion market cap at the moment to, at a base case, 1.6 trillion by 2030, and on a bullish case, 3.7 trillion. So this is really real. So I suppose just when AI was taking over everything, finally blockchain has turned up with something of value, which is stablecoins plus also tokenized deposits getting real usage amongst our clients. And then we also have obviously the tokenization of securities and bonds, which is growing as well and getting real solutions live there too. So, blockchain is finally real and crossed the chasm into doing the things that we've been talking about for long enough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the stablecoin definitely seems to be one of the major topics today, even today here at the Fintech Summit. So it's really interesting to see whether or not this is actually becoming reality. We should have like a very much longer conversation about the stablecoins and what is the utility on that. But for that, we will have to invite you back as a guest in the podcast for a longer conversation.
Yeah.
Today it was just fantastic to meet you again. I might see you in the karaoke later today, but
tonight I'm unfortunately going to miss the karaoke today, this evening. But it was great last year. Hope to come back next year and repeat the performance. But what the community is doing here, Ola and the entire team. It's really fantastic to see the ecosystem come together. And one last thing, my own colleague, Annalie, got an award today on stage for bringing the ecosystem together over the last 10 years. So she was presented with an award, the inaugural award today. So that was a huge win for her because of the often unseen efforts behind the scenes to bridge the fintech hubs across the Nordics. So very proud of her for her work there, and look forward to continuing our collaboration.
Indeed, and literally behind the scenes and behind the camera as well, we can see here. So for you, the people watching on online video. But thank you so much for coming, Dave. It was a pleasure to have you on us, and looking forward to seeing you next year, perhaps even at the karaoke. So,
100%.
All right.
I'm there.
Good. Cheers.
Thank you.
As always, we walk around the corridors here, try and find interesting people to talk to, and that doesn't change at all. As you know from me personally, I've got a burning passion for embedded finance. I am known for saying that the future of banking will be dominated by platforms, and embedded finance is definitely a step in that direction. So when we bumped into Lars here, who also moderated a panel discussion a minute ago, I just had to have him come and join us here for a discussion. I mean, I have heard you being called to as Mr. Embedded Finance. And I think that's fantastic. Maybe we've got some competition here, right? Let's jointly own the title, maybe. But for the few people out there who weren't on the panel discussion, maybe introduce yourself quickly and who you are and those sort of things.
And obviously, thanks for having me. As mentioned, I'm a frequent listener of your podcast, so glad to be now on the other side as well.
We love that.
Yeah, I mean, my name is Lars. I mean, it's a Scandinavian name, but I'm not really from Scandinavia. I'm from Germany. I live in Berlin at the moment. I've been spending my last 10, 12 years in fintech infrastructure, as I call it. Started in open banking with a German company called Figo, first ones in open banking in Germany, where I was responsible for enabling other companies to integrate open banking APIs. And left the company in 2019 and kind of want to do something different, I thought, and then I looked around, and this was 1920 was where I would argue, I mean, embedded finance maybe has been around for longer, but I think there was a specific time where Angela Strange, Matthew Harris, all published their most famous like blog posts around embedded finance. When I read them, I kind of realized, like in my open banking days, we had a lot of different customers, and a lot of them were like very fintechy, like personal finance management tools. And we had like 20, 30 of them former bankers who said, like, I can build a better fintech app. And I was like, yeah, those were sometimes interesting, but very often they didn't go anywhere. But when we had an industry nerd from the, let's say, real estate property management space, and they did something with open banking, it was typically on a complete different level and very, very different. So when I read these articles, I realized, like, yeah, open banking is maybe just the start to something, so it goes deeper. So that was my decision to go all in on embedded finance. I was an employee of a startup for another 2 years-ish, but now since 2.5 years, I work as an independent advisor. Embedded Finance Review is my newsletter, my events, my podcast, kind of trying to educate and share some stories.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I got excited about this whole platformification of the banking industry even before open banking. We're all talking about open APIs,
exactly.
right? In the tech world, we were running around saying, "Oh, the future is open APIs," and then there was a screen scraping going on and everything else. So it was one of the things that we always end up in discussions around, and we cover this off on the podcast very often, is a lot of people out there are still a little bit confused around this. Well, we've got open banking, we've got open APIs, we've got embedded finance, we've got banking as a service, we've got banking as a platform. We have it's bingo time,
exactly,
right? So, as Mr. Embedded Finance, right? There's another actually. There's a Mr. Open Banking as well.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. We've actually had him on the podcast, but how do you segregate each of these to make it clear for banks and fintechs when you're talking to them?
That's a good question. I mean, I would firstly argue there is for me, like the most important part, and we spoke about it on the panel as well, is around like open banking, open finance, and the same for like embedded finance. We're still seeing some of other terms that are coming up here and there. I think sometimes, to be honest, it's a little bit also, people want to coin some phrases, obviously. Yeah. So they come up with like new terms for things where maybe not really a new term is really, really necessary, right? But I think in a way, and for me, the starting point was not open APIs, but basically like open banking. When I joined this company, Figo, and for me, I think obviously like banking is banking, and finance is the umbrella term which includes payment banking, lending, insurance, and investment. So whenever we say banking, we go specifically on the banking part, and when we say finance part, it's a little bit broader. And while there are similarities between open and embedded, and I would say the similarities are mostly from a vision, from a mindset perspective, but actually from an, let's say, product implementation perspective. Open, for me, my definition is that you have already a bank account for the banking part, and you connect it to an existing tool. So you as a user, either consumer or business, you are the one putting these two things together, and hopefully it works really, really well. And sometimes I used to joke, I'm saying like, maybe PSD2 and open banking, maybe this was the opportunity for banks to avoid embedded finance and everything. That after all, if they were doing really, really good APIs, maybe there wouldn't have been the transition from open banking to embedded banking. But as you all know, open banking API implementation in European Union was rather bad, and not really for the consumer perspective very well. So putting these two things together, your bank account and your non-financial product that you want to use, the connection was not so well. And now embedded banking is basically you receive the financial services directly from that partner, and that partner has a lot more possibilities to tailor the product for that specific use case. So I would always argue, with open banking, you can take your transaction history and use it for a loan application. Yes, you can put it together and make nice pie charts and all of them, but there's probably a little bit more than that, but not as much as you can do with embedded banking. With embedded banking, the brand, in that case, maybe the non-financial brand, can actually build one product. It's not so much about a banking product and a non-banking product, it's one product, and the banking is like so much tied in that you don't even realize when you are using the term, when you're using an invoicing or ERP platform, you don't even realize when you are leaving the banking part and going to the non-banking part, and vice versa.
Well, one of the things that I tend to get in discussions with, particularly with banks, is this is not a technology discussion. banks have been good at technology for a long time, right? I mean, banks are run on technology, so technology is not a problem. This is a new set of business models, and it drives a new strategic intent for the banks. And I think the biggest problem that most banks have got is how do they switch that mindset in the leadership team to understand how to take advantage of this and not see it as just another channel for existing products.
But I mean, for me, from an outsider perspective, I also understand it's hard, right? I mean, I can always say, oh, you're not very smart. You're not doing this. You should be doing this, right? I can, when you're not responsible for the decision, you can always be very much like this, right? And Samsa from Lisa Bank also said on the stage, right? Technology is easy, right? That's the simple part. I think the typical challenge here, especially with embedded finance for banks, potentially doing the step of enabling others, becoming a banking as a service provider in one form or another, obviously means supporting businesses, either fintechs or non-financial brands that will competing with yourself, right? And that's the most important question for many of them, like, is do we really want that, right? And that comes, I guess, to the, was it Steve Jobs or the kind of the quotes about like, who should be going after your own revenue, right? Should it be yourself or should it be somebody else, right? And obviously it's, even though when it's had turned bad, you should have been the one who have been doing this. But obviously, as long as it's still working, as long as it's still fine, why pushing other brands so much if you can make the revenue yourself, right? And I think, I know, it's spoke about that as well, like banks are not banks, right? I mean, like there's this, one bank is not like the other, right? There's a lot of like different flavors and variances. We in the fintech world sometimes tend to like throw everything in one bag and say, like, okay, banks are doing this, but even without neobanks, there's such a wide scope of different approaches to technology, business model, and so on. But if I look at the core, I guess I understand it's a hard decision, but in a way, the decision about enabling these businesses is something you have to make. Either, even if it's a no, I'm not doing this, I'm not supporting others, but at least doing it based on well-informed or on well-informed opinion and research and analysis.
Fantastic. I think we're going to leave it there. I'm going to take a phrase that you just made there, which was banks are not banks. I think that's wonderful. Let's see how true that is in the future, but fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And
thanks so much for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the coolest things about Fintech Summit this year and every year is that we run into new friends and old friends. This time around we run into an old friend, so it's good to have you here, Christian. So tell us.
We do long-term friend?
Good long-term, strategic friends. So let's keep it there. But for the listeners, Christian, who are you and what are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, having a fintech event seems like a bit of a party for the family, so of course I have to be here and meet all the people you know, and just walking through the halls here. It's a big old meet and greet of the who's who in Nordic Fintech. Myself, I've been working in financial services, payments and fintech for more than 20 years now, closing in on 25. Was part of the very first online banking solutions, led to mobile banking, led to mobile payments, led to digital wallets, digital assets, and now digital identity, now working for IN Group, which is a big European identity player.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose you're also here talking about MobiForum.
Indeed. Throughout my many roles and responsibilities and jobs throughout the years, there's been one consistent factor, and that has been the MobiForum.
That's true.
And for those of you who do not know MobiForum, it's a worldwide association focused on digital financial services, and that has been the place that I, for one, have come to learn from my peers in the industry from the very early days, where we were all trying to figure out what is a mobile payment, how do we get it to work, until now, where we address complex matters like AI in payments and digital assets, digital identity, and all these things that has happened in this space. So now the two of us actually hold a joint record where we are the two persons in the MobiForum who has represented the most companies in the organization.
Indeed, and I think that's where we first met as well, at MobiForum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So it brings people together and keeps people together. I think that's a nice statement, sentiment for MobiForum as well. But just like me and Paul, you were on stage here at the Fintech Summit just recently. So what did you talk about on stage?
Yeah, I just came off the stage together with a small group of Mobay friends. So we had Tim Richards from Consult Hyperion, Marina Repo from Nordea, Per Hallström from DNB, and myself talking about account-based wallets and digital wallets as such. So what is happening in terms of the advances in account-to-account payments, as well as the general move towards European payment sovereignty, and how the account-based wallets combined with digital identity wallets could play a central role in that development.
Yeah, I think we had a beginning segment for this podcast today, where I think I said someone could say account to account one more time, but because it's such a big kind of theme, especially now, it seems like it's getting closer and closer that the account to account is actually able to challenge card payments finally in Europe. Is that true?
Yes, to a certain extent, because obviously there's still a lot of challenges when it comes to the acceptance part of it for retail payments. But personally, I like to think about account-to-account payments in a wider perspective than just talking about payment rails. Because in many ways, when you do a card transaction, I mean, the money leaves my account and ends up in the merchant's account. So it is an account-to-account payment, but just with some obstacles along the way. And so in that way, I don't see account-to-account payments as adding something new, rather reducing some of the complexity that we have added when we were more in an offline scenario. So now, or at least part of the payer was offline and the merchant was online. Now the merchant is online, the payer is online, so why not connect the wires directly? But I also like to think about account to account in a broader perspective, where we move beyond monetary assets, because whenever you're in possession of some valuable assets, you store them somewhere, according to your preferences. Crypto fanatics like self-sovereignty and self-custody, but most of us like to have our money in our bank account. But what happens now that we start to add other tokenized assets and digital assets, digitized assets into the day-to-day life? So if I need to store or exchange health data, where would I store that? Whom would I trust? What would be the account? It would probably not be the big techs that would facilitate that, nor the card schemes. So that is where I see a big role for the banks to tap into this digital assets cross-section with digital identity, where how do I manage my verified credentials and digitized assets in a good manner.
Yeah, I think, and that's also where all of these conversations start to converge, right? So we're used to be talking separately about digital identity, payments, wallets, card payments, but now it's suddenly everything is starting to come together.
Which was actually exactly what we predicted when we wrote the first digital wallet white paper with Mobay in 2011, where you had the full picture of everything we could do. Then we spent the next 10 years getting the payment part actually working, that we forgot a bit about the rest, but now we're come full circle, and now we're really bringing the vision to life.
Yeah, so is it a self-fulfilling prophecy if it happens this way?
yeah, you could argue. I mean, we've been trying to shape the world according to our predictions.
Yeah, exactly. But let's leave it up there. I only have one more question, which is that, so how have you liked the event so far, and what are your plans next?
I've liked the event very much. It's, as I mentioned earlier, a wonderful gathering of people you know, and what I'm doing next, getting on a flight back home to Copenhagen, and then there's another event in Copenhagen tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, so you're going to miss the karaoke, but...
Unfortunately, maybe fortunately for the rest of the people attending, I won't be singing karaoke tonight.
I can tell you, fortunately is the exact right word when it comes to karaoke, especially towards the end of the night. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you for coming on, Christian, and coming on to the podcast, I should say, Christian, and looking forward to seeing you in the next event.
Thank you.
That's another event come to an end, isn't it?
Indeed. I will cheers to that.
Cheers to that, yes. I mean, big thank you to Citi Banking for their fantastic IPAs here. You know, that's one of the nice things about coming to these events. There's always two vendors that are giving out beers at the end, and Citi very often are good on that. So thank you, Citi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to all of the guests that have joined us here today, and to all the listeners. We think Janne is a fantastically good guy at Helsinki Fintech Farm. We've got nothing against him, but he neglected to book us a room here this year. The other years we've had a room, it's been good. Nice sign on the door says this is where Fintech Daydreaming are and please come and record. This year we didn't quite manage to get that, did we?
No, we are here in the co-working space, in the literal corner of the co-working space. So
yes.
For any kind of outside noise you might have heard during the episode, it's because we are literally in the middle of everything here.
Which also means that we've seen the comings and goings of some very interesting people and managed to get them onto the podcast here to talk to us on the hot sofa, hot chair, whatever we want to call it here with us. But Ville, what has been your highlight of today?
Well, it's a bit of a funny thing. We had press tags this time around, so I didn't have my tag that said my employer's name on it. And I can tell you the experience is very different. If you work for a bank and you're in a conference like this, you get treated in a certain way. And when you only have like your press thingy, then everybody is more neutral towards you. And I've kind of enjoyed that experience. So it's being kind of semi-anonymous has been very nice.
I've got to admit, I agree with you 100%. As a vendor, you tend to find that people run the opposite way, particularly banks, when you come and talk to them. So this, again, having press has been good. But also, I mean, let's be honest, and I don't think in a braggy way, again, like we said from the event in Stockholm, everybody knows us. You know, people are saying, love your podcast, I'm listening. We met someone here today who said they've been listening since episode 1 or something.
Yeah, so they said, I've listened to every episode and I have converted people in my company to listen to yours. So I think half of my company is now listening to you. So, I mean, that's, of course, without sounding too braggy, like you said, it's fantastic to hear.
He actually even said we kept him sane during COVID when we started up. So
yes, some would argue the other way, but anyway.
But yes, so, I mean, yes, I agree with you. I think the positive for me has been having a different hat today and enjoying this conference in that way. And as always, although it was a bit more ad hoc and serendipity, we both ended up on stage yet again.
Oh yeah.
You know, so, but no, the best part has been being here with you, doing what we love.
Yeah, indeed. And I indeed ended up in 2 panel discussions.
Yes.
I had only planned for one. I ended up talking about AI with a few very smart people with me on stage. So, and that turned out pretty good. I think we spent 15 minutes we didn't waste people's time, let's put it that way.
No.
So I think it was perceived well, and even though it was done completely ad hoc, but sometimes, you know, ad hoc is the best way to do things without too much planning.
Shoot from the hip, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's been the worst part for you?
We complain about the same thing every year, which is that the venue has a glass ceiling, and it's very hot now, even in May. Even though the sun hasn't been shining that much today, but even today it's starting to get very hot out there. That, I guess, is the worst thing. But it's the things you tolerate when you're here with the Fintech family.
You're a Finn. You live in the sauna. How on earth can you complain that it's getting hot in a building? Come on.
I'm old.
Yeah, you're old. Yeah, I think for me, worst part for me is the fact that I am running a half marathon in 2 days' time. So this will be the only alcoholic drink that I will cherish. I probably won't drink the whole either because I don't think that's a good idea 2 days before running a long endurance run. So I'm not going to be able to join you at the karaoke this evening, sing stupid songs and make a fool out of myself like I have done in the past.
Yeah, I think I've teased the karaoke thing in every interview that I've done today.
Yes.
So again, yes, I'm definitely going to enjoy the karaoke. I'm trying to avoid getting on stage. I'm trying to save everybody from that horrible experience. So I hope just see other people.
There will be online evidence. We will find it.
Yep. I deny any existence of evidence of previous year, but it is what it is.
Okay. Well, and then like I asked Janne, did you learn anything new today?
I'm actually looking forward to continuing the discussions with few of my colleagues here because we had a lot of people from my team here and they've been listening in to many of the discussions on stages. That's something that we didn't get a chance to do too much because we were doing a lot of these interviews and finding people for the interviews. So we missed a lot of the content. So I'm actually really waiting to get a glass of wine with my colleagues and then hear what they said. I've understood that there's been some interesting things, especially around account-to-account payments on NFC, for instance, revealed here. So maybe I'll learn something new from that.
Fantastic. I won't say that I've as such learnt it as new, but I am encouraged by the growing focus here in the Nordics around embedded finance.
Sure.
I've been shouting this from the rooftops for so long. It's nice to see something actually starting to move. Sometimes being too early to the game is not necessarily the best thing in the world, but I've been predicting this for a long time, and it's interesting and nice to see it starting to take some sort of shape.
That's true. That's true. It even has its own dedicated track this year in the Fintech Summit. So yeah, I agree. It's nice to see things moving forward.
Absolutely. I also realized that we haven't had the joke.
Oh.
Normally you do them at the beginning, I do them at the end. This is really by the hip. Do you have any joke? If you haven't, I've got a really bad one.
Oh, I mean, I literally don't have a joke right now, so you have.
You literally don't have a joke. We're supposed to have a back catalogue.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I'm pulling one out of one of our early episodes.
Okay.
So I'm doing some
Flashback.
some flashback or recycling.
Yeah. Okay.
But where do the alligators keep their money?
I remember this one, but I'm still gonna ask. So where do they keep it?
In a riverbank.
Cheers to that.
I think with that, our beloved listeners and fintech friends, we come to the end of another episode of Fintech Daydreaming, a special live recorded episode from the Nordic Fintech Summit. This episode has been hosted by myself, Paul Krogdahl, and Ville Sointu. It has been edited and post-production by Femi, our good friend, who without we would be stuck, I almost could say. If you want to find out more, then please find us on all the normal podcast channels and on YouTube. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. We do like the comments. We actually want more comments. If you disagree with something we've said, let us know. If you want to be a guest, let us know. But most importantly, like, share, subscribe. And as I always say, if you want to do us just one favor, share this with just one of your colleagues. Help us to grow, help us to get more listeners. We love it. We are apparently, officially, the #1 fintech podcast in the Nordics and number 11 globally. We'd like to get past that 10. Get us to number 9. Help us to grow. That would be fantastic. Until next time, this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.